I felt it was necessary to do a longer form chat about the journey, as I think it's really the only way to put into context how long I have been working at this craft and working at business and working on myself. I think sometimes we see, a post on Instagram or a finished artwork, but a lot of people don't actually realize how long someone has been working on their craft, their business, their personal growth for, and it does not just happen overnight. D, as a young child, I feel like it has taken me 32 years to start to really understand what I was like as a child, and it's making more and more sense now, and I'm asking, I guess, the relevant questions to my parents. I found it, and I find it really hard to focus on anything other than art or creating or things that are hands-on. I can hyper-focus for really long periods of time on art, and I guess that was really what I was like as a child too. If my mum asked me to read a book, that wouldn't go down very well. If there was homework, that would be really hard to get me to sit down and do. But if there was anything hands-on or creatively driven, I think that was something that I could do for hours on end from 2-3 years old. Yes, so that's a really good question. I'm so fortunate that I actually asked my mum this the other day, and we joke about it, but I'm like, Mum, did you realize I wasn't quite normal when I was a kid? And she goes, I knew you were different, and we focused on your strengths. So obviously at that age, you don't realize what your strengths and your weaknesses are. But looking back and obviously asking those questions now, yes, my parents and my family really embraced that. They knew I was different, and they focused on obviously nurturing that as a strength rather than trying to steer me away from that. And I think at the ages of 2, 3, 4 years old or even younger, I think that's when creativity and the innocence in the creations are so important to nurture, because it's before you start opening your eyes up to the world, and it's literally just purely creating. Family for me has always kept me grounded. There was some periods which we'll go into in more depth in my teenage years where I think the only thing that kept me on the right path and maybe not straying into something that could have been really bad was my family and my art. And in turn, I think my family really kept me on the path to my art as well. So it was just, I think I am well aware that I'm so fortunate to have had that support. That's why I'm always incredibly inspired by people who make it as creatives or make it in whatever their field is. If they don't have that support, I'm honestly so inspired, because I've had an abundance of support and it's still been really tough. So generationally, in my parents' generation, art or, a creative career definitely wasn't on the cards, nor was it considered a career path, nor was it considered a job. So I think my mum's understanding around mental health, what she's faced, and her hardship in life, maybe that was the reason why she knew the importance of finding a pathway that made you happy and truly fulfilling, and finding a truly fulfilling pathway. So I think my parents supporting me came from maybe what they didn't have, or knowing that happiness and well-being is above anything else, like money, et cetera, et cetera. So I went to quite an academic school, and even back then, we're talking 15 years ago now, art wasn't a career. So my art teachers were even conscious of saying, you're going to be able to make it as an artist. They sort of said, that's a backup plan, find something else. And when I finished school, academically, I actually did really well. And it almost tripped me up, because I thought, maybe I should do something that I use my brain for. I didn't see art as a valuable career pathway or like a valuable measure, to do anything in business with or anything. I didn't see it like that. So when I decided to be a health scientist or a food scientist, my mum said, "Where's your art?" And I was like, "I'm not going to make a living out of being an artist." And her words were, "Humour me," and encouraged me to study a double degree. So I ended up studying health sciences and a Bachelor of Arts. As much as I really battled the studying of the arts, I think if I wouldn't have done that, I honestly would never have kept painting at all. So it kept me painting. It made me curious as to what a career could look like because so many people said that I couldn't do it. And with that encouragement from my parents, it meant that, someone backed me, which means I then backed myself, and I didn't give up until I could see it being something. If they weren't encouraging of this journey, there is absolutely no way I would have been able to do it. And that's why I say to artists, it might not be a parent, it might be a partner, it might be a friend that backs you in. And if they don't, then you just need to back yourself in. Yeah, because you need that. So my dad, for those who don't know, he actually is a chef by trade. He has worked incredibly hard, as has my mum. She's always been a working mum and an absolute boss woman. And I think a lot of my work ethic comes from the two of them. But my dad has worked really, really hard. He wasn't around much when we were kids. And when he turned 60, he was having a lot of trouble with his hands. And he was like, I think I'm going to chuck in the towel with cooking as a chef. And I said, Dad, why don't you come work with me? Because I was doing murals on my own and they were just really hard to navigate. So 9 years later, Dad's still helping me on murals. And he's nearly 70, but he's 70 going on bloody 40. I can't keep up with him. So honestly, it's been so special, like spending these years with, on so many different jobs, so many challenges we've worked through together. And honestly, I think the biggest and the most special thing is that no matter what job I've taken to him, he's never said, "Are you sure you can do that?" He's honestly never said, "Oh, is this too big for your competent? Like, are you competent to do this?" And he's never questioned it. He's always gone with the flow and just embraced the wild decisions that I've made, like stupidly wild sometimes, and we've just figured it out as we've gone. To wrap it up, my childhood was filled with exploration, a lot of time with my grandparents, spending time in the garden. I used to find so much joy in like building things out of mud and dirt and finding whatever pieces of paper and structures I could create out of absolutely nothing. I think being on the streets and being out in nature and not having technology around too was probably also another big reason as to why I am like I am today. Really just tapping into that creative side of the brain, which I'm so grateful for. So as much as my childhood was beautiful and very nurturing for a creative soul, I then began to face, I guess you could say, some like identity issues and issues with issues with alcohol and drug use at a young age and hanging out with the wrong people, which I'd love to tap into the next segment. We hope you enjoyed this first one and we look forward to seeing you in chapter 2.